This guy is top 5 in Kovacs, but can barely get out of silver. And the reason is his movement. Without good movement, your aim will suck and you'll get one-tapped all the time. So let me tell you why you're thinking of movement wrong, what great movement actually is, and how you can outpeak Xantarez. If you'd rather not spend thousands of hours to learn movement, you can try learning from our sponsor Gosu Academy and their free pro coaches. I've done boot camps with Gosu in the past, but now I want to tell you about their academy where you can interact with several pro players and analysts on a free 30-day trial. The reality is that everything you need to learn in CS is out there online for free, but it's learning that's the hard part. And the reason these programs are useful is because hands-on learning is often known as a much more effective way to improve, and it helps you get past the information overload you might sometimes find on YouTube. You can use this program not only to improve, but to meet like-minded players that you can network with and will help you in the long term. If you like the idea of Gosu, head to the link in the description for a 30-day free trial. Good movement is boring. Good movement is usually boring. For example, this is simple using his thousands of hours of movement practice to get into window a fraction of a second faster, and you might not even be able to tell the difference. But boring or not, movement is the biggest gap between silvers and globals. No, seriously, I can literally double my sensitivity and play my first non-premier matchmaking game since CS2's release, and not only will the other team struggle to hit me, but my aim will look amazing too. Normally my movement is okay and my aim is already bad, but angle clearing and gunfight movement will pretty much make up for that entirely. But hold on, what exactly is gunfight movement? Well, how would you rate this movement play from Rops? It's some of the cleanest movement you're ever going to see in a real game, and most people wouldn't be able to replicate this on the first try. This play kind of reminds me of a movement trick shot. Then looking at this one, is this better movement? Because it's certainly not harder mechanically. In fact, I think anyone watching could probably do most of the movement he's doing, but when I did a survey, most people rated it as a better movement clip. The thing is, there's a good chance you're thinking about movement wrong. It's fun to have a really sick movement play like this one, but these sorts of plays are pretty rare. On the other hand, you get into gunfights literally every round, unless you play B, but if I play even a DMG level player, they often have movement that looks like this. Not moving. They're standing completely still as soon as they make contact. It adds a tiny bit of downtime, but staying mobile if you're not instantly headshotting your opponent is pretty helpful. I mean, take a look back at this 4K from Scream. He kills them quickly, but they do have time to shoot back. The problem is because he's one-tapping, he keeps moving between shots and is incredibly hard to hit. This isn't me saying you should try tap-style gunfighting, Nico, but if you ever play someone that doesn't seem that good, but you keep whiffing on them, there's a good chance that's good movement. Back in CS Source, there was something called a jump peak, which was game-ruiningly broken because of Peeker's advantage. And it's still technically in CS2, but because of landing inaccuracy, nobody does it. But of course, anyone that's seen Xantarez play knows you can do some insane peaks regardless. Abusing Peeker's advantage is your best bet to get free kills, and the majority of angles pro players use specifically try to prevent that. Tell me, you're moving out Monster on Overpass. Where are you looking? Well, you clear the right, then you clear the top of the barrels, right? So perfecto, where would you play if you're holding Monster? Beside the barrels. No, wait. Crouching behind the barrels, then peeking to catch Rops off guard. If you have a rifle and you play an angle your opponents are expecting, they should usually kill you if they peek well. Peek well? What does that look like? Okay, I want the 4 of you to hit me with your best peek. There's a good chance that from these peaks alone, you can tell the difference in the player's skill levels. But can they make the cat jump? Is a question I don't really care about. But if I ask one of them how they clear cat on Dust 2, it should instantly be clear that something doesn't look right. The problem is that if anyone was actually in any of these angles, he would probably die. You're not going to win every gunfight ever, but especially with Peeker's advantage being stronger in CS2, you should win a good amount of them. This is where I would put a pro clip if it was in the map pool. Instead, you can compare the last clip to me clearing cat. On second thought, we can just use Rops on Mirage. The goal is to get to max speed before you get to the angle you're trying to clear, be as far away from the wall as you can, stop directly when you clear that angle, and have your crosshair right on position. Stop the video, stop it, Vu, that's not movement, that's crosshair placement. Remember earlier in the video when I said you're thinking about movement wrong? Well, I actually explained this in my video on the aim versus game sense debate. When you're playing an enemy, what do you think of as their aim? Well, the answer is probably probably that their entire package of mechanics will seem to you to be their aim. It's the question of how fast do they kill me when we take a straight up engagement. And the same thing is true for movement. It'll be hard to say you have good movement if you run in looking in the wrong direction. So a bad peek can be anything from crosshair placement to not getting to max speed. If the max speed thing is confusing, look at how Rops backs up a little bit before going for these peaks. That's because he's so close to the corner, if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be at max speed. But a good peek sets you up to take a shot at your opponent as fast as possible. So a peek where your opponent doesn't give you any time to react is good movement. Or once in a while, it's really bad netcode. I've been told one of the biggest tells for player rank is actually percent of rounds killed while holding W, and it's really obvious because I see this pretty often. A player is lower tunnels and they want to get to mid, so how do they do it? They run straight at it until they get there. No, what you should be doing is hugging the left wall while you clear the right so you're harder to peek into, and then strafing over and Xantares peeking anyone near mid doors. But what is a Xantares peek? No wait, that segment's later. You would call this pathing, and pathing like this is basically the opposite of peeking. Don't make it easy for people to peek into you and kill you while you're already in danger. If you get caught holding W, you're basically a free kill, so it's pretty important not to let that happen. And before you say it, no, this is not a good excuse to sit Tetris the whole round when your team hits A on Mirage. So if I open up MS Paint to explain, no, MS Paint sucks. So if I open up Photoshop to explain, this is the route noobs run because it's in the middle of the open. This is the route you might run if you want to go very aggressive and get to the site quickly, and this is the route you might run if you're a dirty baiter. I mean, you want to protect the players that are entering the site. I joke, but it is actually important to have players running both routes because they support each other. 47 years ago, Xantares hit us with the first Ferrari peak, and that added whatever the fuck a Xantares peak is to the list of 15 other possible types of peaks. If we look back at that Rops 4K from the enemy POV, he's obviously really hard to hit, and that is an insane peak, but absolutely none of the peaks Rops made there were Xantares peaks. And honestly, exactly what a Xantares peak isn't really clear.
When I see a Xantares peak, I actually don't know what a Xantares peak is.
Can you tell me what a Xantares peak is? Like swing out really fast, like a quick wide swing.
Instructions unclear. You want me to wide swing someone? What about a flam peak? What about a flam peak? That? No? This is Xantares right here. Nah! No, cut it, don't use it, scrap it.
This is supposed to be a Xantares peak, and so is this. And also this is supposed to be a Xantares peak as well. But none of those are at all similar. Based on YouTube videos, there's no consistent answer. However, from the people I asked, the most common answer other than I don't know was actually this.
Xantares peak is when you get close to the wall and you swing as wide as you can. Because when you're closer to the wall, it looks like you move faster.
You just peek close to the angle and overswing the crosshair position that your opponent probably has. If you do it well, it's really hard to deal with. Like, almost impossible. But if you watch pro games, you're going to notice they don't do it that often. In fact, 95% of their peaks are shoulder peaks. And that's because good movement doesn't need to be impressive. Make your shots easy to hit and don't die. Like what will probably happen if you pre-aim wrong and go for a Xantares peak. Earlier I said I don't care if you can make the cat jump, and it really doesn't matter compared to every other type of movement. But I'm not trying to say KZ is a waste of time. Refrag and YPRAC are both more real game situations that'll immediately transfer over. However, if you can move your character around a KZ map better, the odds are you can probably move your character around a real map better as well, so it's certainly not a waste of time. In fact, if you want to have movement as good as Rops without having to think about it, you probably need to spend at least a little bit of time doing KZ. Or you can try this trick from nothing.
It's a fun draw. But right when someone sees you, you don't shoot for the first half second. See how long? Sometimes you don't realize how long it takes someone to kill you when you're so stressed about getting killed, right?
Anyways, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out this other one that YouTube thinks you'll like.